cometh out of the wilderness? Who is this who walks in the desert early in the winter morning? What is he doing in Timnah? Is he an archaeologist who happened upon a stone of a long-lost temple of the past? Is he a mountain climber, a nature lover, or perhaps a tourist looking for King Solomon's mines? Or is he simply a middle-aged Israeli who wants to keep fit? Who is Avraham Yoffe?
My father was born in Russia at the end of 19th century, and he thought himself a very good Russian. He wanted to make revolutions and he wanted to change a lot of things in Russia as a Russian. But then in 1905 there was a pogrom in the city where he lived. Being a student, he got involved in it, and the Cossacks actually hit him and broke his nose in the process. And all of a sudden he decided that Russia is not exactly his country, his home country. And he came to Israel as an immigrant. And of course he came and he wanted to change everything. Mother came from Poland, and she came at exactly the same time. And they decided to come in here. She met my father when he was a worker, and they came here together and started this farm. I do believe that a lot of my later life came from the impression in this village. And this village, which is called Yavnel, is the place where I was born. I was born in 1913, just before World War I, and I spent 15 years of my life in this village.
I first got to know him in 1950, when we were both on a ground forces brigade commander's course. Now, I have seen quite a bit of Avraham since. He, of course, has had an extremely distinguished military career. He commanded the brigade group that took Sharm el-Sheikh in 1956 in the Sinai campaign, and of course commanded a division in 1967 in the Six-Day War with great distinction.
Sharm el-Sheikh, at the tip of the Sinai Peninsula. On Monday, the 5th of November, 1956, Colonel Avraham Yoffe sent the following cable to General Moshe Dayan, at that time Chief of Staff of the Israel Defense Forces. It is finished. Praised be God, the creator of the earth. 11 years later, in the Six-Day War of 1967, Brigadier General Yoffe again played a vital role in winning the Desert War.
When one day I was sitting in my headquarters, and my sergeant came in and said, "Sir, there is a woman to see you." I said, "Send her away. I don't have any time for women today." So he went away and he said, "Yes, sir, but she says she's your mother." So I said, oh, in this case, bring her in. So she came in and she said, "Here I am." I said, "Well, mother, I'm very happy, but what do you mean?" She says, "I'm not leaving." She says, "Look, your three brothers and my daughter all are in the army. Your father is doing some sort of a service about half a week. I can't stay home alone. So I came to be with you in the battalion." So I said, "Mother, but what can I do with you? You can't be in the battalion." She says, "Well, this is your worry." So in the end, I didn't have any other choice and I made her chief cook of headquarters company. And she stayed with the battalion for about 14 months, and she became a corporal. When I became an old man at the age of 50, being a general in the army, I started to think about my second career. I knew that I have to leave the army. Usually you have to leave at 55. And I thought about it, and I decided that I'm not going to do it in the same way as others do it. I have to prepare myself. And at the age of 50, I decided to look around, give myself another year in the army, and then leave. I looked around trying to find the right job for myself. And I decided that it must have a lot of fresh air in it. I have to be a public servant because this is what I did all my life. And I didn't like to be stuck in and hemmed in an office. And at the age of 10, something happened to me. A teacher came, a woman, or actually she was a girl at that time. She just left seminar, and she was a teacher for natural history. And she was afraid of the children, and especially she was warned against me because I was always making trouble in the class. And she tried to win me over, and by telling me about nature, by telling me the secrets of nature, and we used to go around. And this is perhaps when I started. I knew a lot about it. I mean, I saw a lot about it. But with her help, it was mainly knowing and learning about nature, which started at the tender age of 10. So when the Nature Reserve Authority was established, I took it over, and I've been with it for 5 years. When I started working in the Nature Reserve, I actually didn't suffer at all, and it was very easy and simple for me. In a way, the fight for nature conservation is similar to the one which I did before. In the army, I had to fight the enemies of the country. But in here, I usually fight the population or the tourist, and I have to plan my fight exactly as I did it in the army. But before I did it for the country, and now I do it for the flowers, for the beasts, for the animals, for the birds, and the beautiful sights which we have in Israel.
Yoffe's dream is to make a great nature reserve of the whole country, with the sea and the desert, the mountains and the lakes, the gazelles and the birds, united in a republic of peace and beauty. For the time being, there are some 150 nature reserves in Israel. Small reserves, big reserves, and even a sea reserve in a lot on the Red Sea. Yoffe spends 5 days a week inspecting the flora and the fauna of his country. The reserve of Ḥarb, wildlife in Hebrew, lies in the middle of the Negev desert. No trees, no flowers, but many antelopes, ostriches, and onagers. Accompanied by the Ḥarb reserve warden, Yoffe gets a briefing on the newly imported animals. Are the Adax antelopes, which come from the United States, getting used to the desert climate? Are they in good health? Is the water supply sufficient? Ḥarb, which will one day accommodate all the animals mentioned in the Bible, is apparently one of Yoffe's favorite reserves.
The ostriches seem anxious not to miss a second of Yoffe's inspection of Ḥarb. How could they let the Adax antelopes imported from the Chicago Zoo steal the show in this, the animal parade? The onagers look at the world with a certain wisdom, as if they had already seen it all in their several thousand years of existence.
Saturday is family day. Abraham Yoffe lives in Ramat HaSharon, not far from Tel Aviv, with his wife and 2 daughters. His son and his grandson live at Kibbutz Nir David, thus following in the general's footsteps. Yoffe founded this settlement in 1936 and worked there for 15 years. The rest of the Yoffe clan never left the land. They are spread out all over Israel. Abraham, the chief of the clan, often visits his sister, his brother, his uncle, and his mother.
Well, in this area where we are crossing now, one of the most interesting things is the gazelle population. Gazelle is called in Hebrew the tzvi, and Israel used to be known in the old times, in the Bible times, as the land of the tzvi, the land of the gazelle. But owing to poaching and illegal hunting, we nearly, about 5 or 6 years ago, we nearly had nothing left. The first thing that I did, I stopped completely the hunting and shooting of gazelles, legally or illegally. And today we can see hundreds of them. Actually, we have a few thousands of gazelles which are running on Galilee, and they are all over the place. And this is the point, because gazelles in Israel, you have in the north, you have in the south, you have in the desert, and they are beautiful animals which thrive, and if you don't molest them, they stay, they are there, and they are joy to everybody who sees them.
The gazelles and the ibex still run freely today in the hills and the deserts of Israel. They are also present on these beautiful rock paintings recently discovered in the neighborhood of King Solomon's Pillars in Timnah. They date from the Nabatean kingdom, which flourished 2 centuries before Christ.
What does Abraham Yoffe do, outside of worrying about the Black Panther's cold? Like many of his fellow countrymen, he practices the national Israeli pastime, archaeology. But discovering the secret language of old stones is not the general's only hobby. to people, cracking jokes. These too are Yofe's hobbies. Eating is one of Yofe's main passions. What is his favorite dish? All kinds of dishes, French, Brazilian, Indian, or Israeli, provided they are served in huge quantities. I am on a diet, says Yofe, a rich diet.
En-Gedi was famous even in the time of King Solomon, when apparently he used to come over here, and the other kings used to come over here, and you can find it in the Song of Songs. It tells a lot about En-Gedi, and we know that En-Gedi used to be a hiding place for many peoples and many rebels. For us today, En-Gedi is a nature reserve. And it has two important things in it. First of all, it's a nature reserve which we might call an African one, because most of the fauna and flora here is not a European and not an Asian one, it's an African one. It's endowed with a lot of springs.
The Judean desert, once the field of kings and the lair of rebels, now the home of Bedouins. And from the Judean desert to another desert, the one where it all began, the Sinai.
Perhaps after being so long in the Sinai desert, I came to the conclusion, after the Sinai mountains, in the southern part of Sinai, I came to the conclusion that this is the place, perhaps, where Moses came to the point where he embraced the monotheistic way of thought, Because there you must come to the conclusion that there must be a force, one single force. Some people call it nature, some people call it God. But I could understand the Israelis, or the sons of Israel who came from Egypt, and where he kept them for the 40 years, coming to the point in believing only in one God, after being in a pagan country, where you have gods of every description.